weeks ago in Forney, Texas, Kamitra Barber, a mother, was pulled over by police and handcuffed in front of the 4 young kids in her car. The stop was reportedly in response to a 911 call about someone waving a gun out of the car window of a beige or tan-colored vehicle. Barber's car is burgundy red. It's a case of mistaken identity. Take a look.
Come on back. Keep walking backwards. Keep walking backwards. Put your hands on your head. Right here. Come on back.
Yes, sir.
Come on back.
What is wrong?
Watch you in a minute.
My kids.
Hold on.
They're 6 and 8 and 10, 9. What are we doing?
Hold on a second, okay?
Sir, what is going on? Oh my God, you have terrified my children.
While the mother's pleas are heart-wrenching to hear, what happens moments later is almost impossible to watch.
There you go. Gun down, gun down. Gun down. Come on back here, son. Come on back here. You're all right.
Salamisha,
Yeah, sorry.
because, so let me say, we can't prosecute this. It's not a case. There isn't any, no one is killed in this interaction. But as we are talking about trust, and you can hear her saying, "You are going to terrify my children," and then guns down, so you know that at every point guns have been up, and then that baby coming out of the car with his hands, I mean, and now we watch it, and the notion of trust is violated at such a core level.
I guess my response is partly because knowing that your hands are up means nothing.
Nothing.
Right? So to see that little boy get out the car in an image that we now associate with Michael Brown is really jarring, so that he's not safe. But I guess to a larger point of trust and creating a sense of trust amongst African Americans with the state, with police officers, starting with the Desmond Tutu clip, I think was really important because I've done a lot of work on reparations, and last time I was on with Ta-Nehisi, and he was talking about reparations, and you know, what does it mean for a group of Americans, African Americans in this case, never to have had any sense of real reconciliation with the state for the long history of racial injustice? And Ta-Nehisi's point was about racial discrimination in racial housing, but obviously we're talking about, you know, slavery and segregation. And then also with the 2008 apology, while I applauded it, it was also, the timing was really curious because we also had the election of the first African American president, and that way kind of overshadowed the potency of the apology. When people demanded Clinton to apologize, it was seen as maybe a catalyst for reparations, and Clinton eventually backed away from that. So I want to say that, you know, the apology meant something when the Congress did it, but it didn't have the teeth to create a more sustainable racial justice movement in America. And also,
I often also talk about the Senate apologizing for having never passed the Dyer anti-lynching bill, which happened literally like something like 4 to 6 weeks before Hurricane Katrina occurs and the failure of federal response in that context. So here you had an apology, here you have an acknowledgement of the Senate's failure to have brought racial justice at the turn of the century, like just, you know, at the threshold of another injustice that ends up being perpetrated.
You can't apologize for things that are ongoing. You have to stop doing them first. And I think, getting back to this video, what is most striking to me is the state brutalizes black women in that way every day.
Yep.
And we see these brutalizations in their most extreme format when there's a gun drawn on a person. But every time somebody goes in and applies for Medicaid and is treated like they are damaging their children. Every time that we have, going back to the foreclosure crisis and all of the irresponsible borrowers that, and these were many of these were black women, something that we didn't talk about.
As opposed to irresponsible lenders.
Right, irresponsible, but they were all these black women who just had done too much with their loans. We brutalize black people by policy in ways every single day that are less extreme than killing us. And we need to have some understanding of that. Yeah, and the fact that the kid knew to raise his hands getting out of the car. Also, by the way, that he knew. Because this wasn't his first interaction with a brutal state.
Right, and you know, there some of the more appalling analysis that has emerged post Michael Brown is this language of, well, when you encounter the police, you just have to, you know, back up and you have to say, sir, and but we see this mother driving down the street in a road that I presume if she's a taxpayer, she has paid taxes on, right? As well as, and she is stopped. She is saying, what is happening? And then we learn that at every point there are guns on her. She's being handcuffed in front of her children.
This conversation is so difficult for me to swallow because this doesn't happen to my community. And, you know, in general, the police are our friends, and white people look at them as our friends. And we know, and when I think about that I can drive down the street and a cop, you know, tails me, I'm not going to get afraid. They're going to put a gun to my child.
Right, you can be irritated that you're going to get a ticket.
Because I was wrong.
Right.
Right, and I should get a ticket. And when I think about that first night in Ferguson, Saturday night, not Sunday night, the cops came with dogs that first night. They were peacefully protesting that first day, before the tear gas, before the rioting and looting. The cops came with dogs to a black community.
I was going to say, when we know that history of
when we know that history. So when I think about this as a white person, I have to challenge white people to check our privilege and check our power. And when we see things like this, when I see 59% of white people, right, we have to have the conversation amongst ourselves of how are we contributing to this problem? How are we part of this problem? How can we help resolve this problem? Because this doesn't happen to us.
And this is my policy. Stay with us. We're going to go right on this question. As soon as we get back, we'll come right back to this.